Close your eyes and sit in a comfortable position. Clear your mind of all thoughts and become one with yourself. Move your attention to your fifth chakra, the throat chakra. As you become aware of your throat chakra, close your eyes and visualize pale blue in your mind's eye. Your throat chakra is the center of your self-expression. It brings you a sense of confidence and validation in your voice, and you know that you are being heard. This chakra relates to the sense of hearing and governs the thyroid, metabolism, and the immune system. When blocked, you may find that you have a fear of speaking and are unable to express your thoughts. You may become detached and anxious in public. When you are able to release this blockage, you are able to stand firm in your truth and express yourself freely, openly, and with confidence. Allow your inner voice to speak out and feel confident and responsible for your self-expression. When your throat chakra is in balance and opened, you are comfortable to speak your truth. Concentrate on your breathing. Breathe in and out slowly as you control your breathing pattern. Imagine that you are free to speak your truth and allow your wisdom to be spoken into the world. Have an inner knowing that you are being heard and your truth is valid. Feel free to introduce the mantra for the throat chakra as you fall deeper and deeper into this throat chakra meditation. The mantra is hum. Repeat this internally. Hum. 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 Continue to mentally repeat the mantra as you focus on your breathing. Release all thoughts and focus solely on your breathing and the throat chakra mantra. Hum. Hum. Breathe in deeply and continue to repeat the mantra. Hum. 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 It is now time to release the mantra. As you move throughout your day, pay attention to all of the areas in your life where you are suppressing your voice. Identify the areas in your life where you have suppressed your voice and not allowed yourself to be heard. Be free to dance, write, sing, and express yourself in any creative form you wish. Be free and let your voice be heard. After all, we all have a story, and it is best that we tell it.
Welcome to Oneness Live. I'm Dr. Selena. I'm so happy to have you here with us today, joining us on our first show. It's so exciting to have the ability to share my journey with you and journeys of others who will be participating in our show. So I hope that you had a great week. I hope that it was filled with wonderful exposures and great fulfillments. And I want us to enjoy what we're getting ready to journey upon right now here with my co-host, who is Leanne Neves. Now, Leanne Neves is a young woman that I've known for a very long time, and she is phenomenally talented. And she's going to actually spend this next 3 segments interviewing me, which I've never had done before. So this is going to be an exciting period for me to maybe have more interactions with myself and my feelings. So let's see what happens. So Leanne, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. It's truly an honor. I remember just 2 years ago when we went to Martha's Vineyard, I brought my son and we spent just 2 days on the island at your home. You opened up your home to us and made us feel so welcome. And in exchange, we were able to sit down and really create the outline for your book. Now, I have no parts in the actual writing of your book whatsoever at all, but I was able to take on the administrative skills that I had. And as we sat down, we outlined the entire book. You said, you had this idea. It was just kind of, in your mind. And we were able to really break it down chapter by chapter and outline what it was that you wanted to say in this book. Now, tell us a little bit more about how you came to the idea of writing this book and why. Where did this motivation come from?
That February, when you and your son came to the vineyard, was really phenomenal for me because you really structured me. Although I had began writing, so it's a question of what brought me to writing this book. So I was in Cape Verde, and I started looking on all the mental health disparities that were going on there. Especially, you could see a lot of schizophrenia, and I know there's a lot of emotional stuff going on there. And so I said, I've been doing this work for so long. Why don't I do a workbook to try to at least leave a tool that can be used by some of the providers here in Cape Verde? And because my heart was there and I wanted to help. So I started writing the workbook. So in San Vicente, I sat at the pool at the hotel and with my friend Paula, and we sat there at the pool, and she's sitting there trying to enjoy her vacation, and I'm saying, so what do you think I should put in this part? Oh, and okay. And she just sat there kind of like my little soundboard. And I began writing the workbook. So by the time I got to you, the workbook had been somewhat established. But then somebody said to me, well, you can't just do the workbook. You need to write about emotional healing and those kinds of things, especially with my background. And you need a story to tell. I said, oh, well, I have tons of clients. I get tons of stories I can tell. Then I said, you know what? It's time for me to tell my story. I've never, ever told my story to anyone. My best friends know. Now, everybody knows. And it's kind of relieving. It's transformational for me to have been able to cleanse all that out of me. So that's how this book came to be. It came from a passion of what I wanted to do to help my family's country, to into an internal type of journey for me to start looking at my stuff and receiving a lot of aha moments from it, to creating this book, to creating the 5 Keys to Emotional Oneness, the Emotional Detox System. And it's funny because I didn't want the word oneness on there at first, but God said, you want that word on there because that's what this is all about. So that's how this book came about.
So one of the pieces that I pick up most from your book is picking up the fragmented pieces that people experience through this trauma that they experience. So you speak of oneness. Why oneness? I can see the theme, but can you tell me a little bit more about why you chose oneness to be so bold and so big and just the biggest theme of your book?
Oneness, I was conflicted because you remember that was year I had the spa in Martha's Vineyard. It was detox. Everything said detox, detox, detox. So I thought, well, the book should be about detoxing. But in my heart, it was really about healing. So I was conflicted. Do I go by the masses, detox, everybody wants to detox, or do I go on what really is happening inside of us? So I started to drop oneness, and I spoke to the publisher. I said, I think we're going to take oneness out of this. She said, no, you're not. And God knew that oneness had to stay in there because this is not about detoxing. This is about oneness. This is about finding those fragmentations, those parts that are so transcendental and not connecting, and having them come together into one to make us who we really need to be to receive our gifts. And so this book really, I think I feared being a healer. It was like, people are going to think I'm kind of woo-woo. But no, this is about healing. This is about getting your voice heard. This is about taking those fragmentations and bringing them together so that you can unlock, unveil, and unleash and get your greatness. That's what this is about. So oneness remained. And you know what? Since I was obedient, it's an international bestseller. I think because of oneness, because God knew that it needed to be out there. And this was before the Me Too's. This was before all that occurred. And oneness is it's all about bringing those fragmentations together now.
The other three main words that for me, really, for my own personal journey, have helped me so much because now I'm able to go back and be like, well, where am I? But without getting too deep into that, tell me, where did you get this idea of block, stopped, and flatline? Where did it come from, and what is it briefly?
So if you remember this, I know you do. One night I woke up in the middle of the night and I called you and I said, Leanne, I think I got the name of my book. I got the name of my book. It's Block, Stop, and Flatline. And I think you said, like, let's talk about that. Well, I was sleeping and I had this dream about block, stop, and flatline, and it had this great storyline. So I woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote down block, stop, and flatline, and I said, I'll remember the storyline because it was so significant. Well, I totally did not remember the storyline. And what I did remember was block, stop, and flatline. So now I'm conflicted again. This was before Oneness came along. Is this the name of my book? God's given me this image. So I started writing the book. And before I knew it, block, stop, and flatline became the thread. It's my healing thread that runs through my book. And it is the healing thread. And if we look at it and break it down, at some points you can see the fragmentations on each one and how you need to bring it into oneness.
Well, Dr. Selena, a character that you introduced into the story, a little girl named Belle, and she kind of sticks around through the whole entire story. Tell me a little bit more about who is Belle, why is she so important, and why did you choose to include her in the book?
It was hard because I was looking through a mirror when I was writing Belle. And I never realized how much Belle really suffered from 8 years old. Belle's significance in the story is that she was a little girl who was happy. She danced. At 5 years old, she danced on stage. She was like little Shirley Temple with her little feet, and she did Latin dancing, and she loved to dance. So she danced with a choreographer from New York, who happened to be her cousin, Manny Martin. He was a great choreographer in New York, and he came back home to Massachusetts, and Belle was one of his dancers. And she was a lively little girl. She liked doing things. She loved her little red bike. Oh my God. She got this little red bike and she rode it everywhere. It was like somebody just bought her a brand new car. And it was her lifeline. We took her everywhere because Belle was full of action. She liked movement. Although she was also a very quiet girl. She was a shyness to her. She wasn't, for some reason, not always received by her peers because she always kind of lived within inside of herself, especially after 8 years old. Before 8 years old, she was with family. She was young, of course, and she danced. She loved dancing, and she still loves dancing. Of course, Belle is me, and I speak of Belle in the third person because it kind of made it a little bit easier to really look at who I am and who I was. So Belle was a very happy young girl, and lots of funny. She had funny actions. A comedian. So she'd either be very serious or she'd be very silly. So Belle, when Mommy and Daddy and Belle lived in the same household, Belle recalls making these fishing hooks and fishing sinkers with her daddy up in the attic of the house, and she had her own little playroom up there, and she was the only child, so she had fun playing by herself with her dolls, and she had all these little toys, and her and Daddy always did things together because Mom was very sick. Mom was always sick all of Belle's life. So Belle really attached to her daddy, who she called Papa Bear. and to her grandmother Vanilla, who's Daddy's mom. So Belle lived a happy life. She was an A student. She was loved in school. Although I remember one year she stabbed the boy in the hand because he pulled her braid. But I think that was after her demise when she moved into another spectrum of life. But it was kid stuff, and he was hurt. He reminds her now as an adult, you know, you stabbed me in my hand. So she was kind of like mysterious, Belle was. She had all these variables, and there was some consistencies, and her consistency was in dancing and music. So that was Belle.
And you do a really good job of bringing Belle through your three different phases: blocked, stopped, and flatlined. So let's start at blocked. Tell me, what is blocked? What does it mean? And how was it significant to Belle? How does she exemplify these characteristics in her own life experience?
So at 8 years old, Belle's mom and Belle's dad traveled all the time. He worked for the government. He was a I don't even know what my father did, but he built houses in Portugal. I knew he did that, and he was a contractor. He was also a masonry contractor, and he worked. And the government sent him to Portugal to build homes and what have you. So he's always traveling. So Papa Bear being gone wasn't unusual for Belle. But then Belle got wind that Papa Bear wasn't going to be coming back home because her mother decided that she and Papa Bear were going to not live together anymore. So the wonderful thing about Papa Bear was that he would make donuts. So these are little things that we remember, that we don't even know what their effects are till later on. And when I wrote the Restore chapter, these are things that help with restoration. But we'll talk about that when we get to that point. But the donuts and combing my hair and watching Captain Kangaroo with me, because my mom was always sick, so she didn't have the engagement of those types of engagements with me. Although my mom made sure that my hair was done later on when I was in junior high school. She always made sure my hair was done. She always made sure I had fine clothing. She liked me to wear fine clothing, so I have to give her that credit. But Papa Bear and I were always together. So at 8 years old, when it was decided that Papa Bear was not coming home anymore, Belle decided that being an A student meant nothing. This is at 8 years old. Being an A student meant nothing. Being liked by people didn't mean anything. And having to do the right things in terms of go to school and move forward with life had no meaning. So at 8 years old, Belle became blocked. She decided, I don't know how to handle this. And I didn't understand how to handle this until I did this piece on Belle. When I started taking a real image, and I didn't fear it, and I combated it. I fought it. I wanted to know it. So I sat there and watched Belle, who sat in that little chair in her mother's room, the little flower chair. In those days they had these little big flower brocaded things and colorful, and the school was right across the street. And Belle decided, I'm not going to school anymore. I'm not going to do anything anymore. And although she didn't stop life, she transitioned. So Belle got blocked. Belle's blockage was about her deciding that life had no meaning to her anymore. Not in a suicidal sense, but in a sense of, I'm not making Mommy happy because Mommy sent Daddy away. So if I can't have Daddy, who reinforced everything that I was supposed to do with my life, there's no sense in doing anything anymore at 8 years old. So I would sit in that chair and I would watch the kids go to school, and I wouldn't go. So I stayed back in 5th grade because I wouldn't go. And my blockage was that I would be present in things, but I wouldn't be present. So you saw me, but I didn't see you. I didn't hear you. I didn't learn from you. And I didn't receive you. But I was present because there was times I had to be present. So I have no memory of 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade at all because I went as minimally as I could. But how I transitioned, my blockage was to find a young woman who lived in my neighborhood. Her name was Marie. And Marie was older than me, and she actually got married, I think, at 15 years old, and had a baby probably at 16. A little Portuguese girl who just really embraced me. And she really, I guess, she wasn't a bad girl. She was just an advanced girl. She got married. She had a child. Um, and she lived in the third floor of her mom and dad's home. And she paid rent. And her husband lived there with her. So she became my mom. I decided I divorced my mom. And I'm going to go and have Marie give me the insights. But Marie was young. So even though she didn't never expose me to anything horrific, she did expose me to like freedom of at a young age and taught me how to smoke cigarettes at a young age. So and things like that. But so blockage came not where I was stopped at this point because I was still functioning. I was still moving. It was just that I was moving and stopping, moving and I was not. I was going through. I could go through, but I wasn't being present. I only was present when I chose to be present. And I think at this point, too, dancing may have stopped. And school definitely stopped. And getting good grades totally stopped. It's funny how God works things through. And we'll probably talk about that later on and how I got to where I am without any schooling for all those years. So that's what happened with Block. Block just kind of took hold and created this characteristic of I don't care.
So now moving right along, you do bring Belle right through the stopped process as well. So what led up to Belle's stoppage and what exactly is being stopped and how did it affect Belle in her own personal life?
Stopping is this, my whole example of stopped is like when you have a blocked sink, right? And the waste is going down, but it's going very slowly. Very slowly. Sometimes it doesn't even all go down, but eventually it gets through the pipes. And that's where Belle got to when she wasn't hearing from her daddy. And things got really bad financially. And Mom had to move into affordable housing. And for some reason, my mom wouldn't really ask my dad. I don't know what was going on with them. But all I knew in my mind was there was no more donuts for months and months. There was no more Dark Captain Kangaroo and combing my hair. There's no more dancing. There was, even my little red bike didn't matter anymore. And so this is now probably 10, 11, 12 years old. We move out of the community that I'm used to, and we move into a community that everyone talked about not being like the place to live because it wasn't the best area. It was where the people who didn't have anything lived or had troubles or whatever. We know that now not to be true, but back then that's how it was described. So Belle became stopped because also Marie moved to California, left her husband, took her beautiful little baby Lisa, who I became extraordinarily attached to, and I depended upon Marie for my breath. Although I still had Vanilla, my grandmother, who I could go to her house, and I could get my daddy in me, and we would sing songs about my daddy, and she would tell me stories about my daddy, so I could still hear some things about my Papa Bear. But then I was between these, because now we moved into this community, and my mom was losing me. So she sent me back to my grandmother's. But now I got the taste of this community. So I'm like, I want to go back there. They're dancing. We had a little place called the Sugar Shack. And I mean, my mom was very strict with me, but I would sneak out and do things. So I became stopped because now I compilated things. So I went from 8 years old to blocking myself from receiving and being present to 10, 11, 12 years old to not caring at all about what comes in or what goes out. Just going with the flow. learning from the kids in the neighborhood. And that brought about that slow leakage, that slow absorption, that slow ability to create things, that slowness in wanting to really think about things and move forward in life or have positive thoughts. Although there's a lot of guilt. We'll talk about those emotional feeders later, but what feeds the behaviors of blocked, stopped, and flatlined are these feeders that we'll talk about at another point in time. And so I was laden with the feeder of guilt and shame and blame, because now I had nothing else to hold on to. And I was now going into an area that I knew my father would just look at me and say, I can't believe you're doing this. I would have been such an embarrassment to my father. So it became a sneak, and I would sneak and do things. So it stopped me from living the life that I was supposed to live, that I was supposed to be involved in, the direction I was supposed to grow into. It stopped me right there. It was like, no more presents. I'm just going to do it. And I hardly went to junior high school. The truant officer came to my door every day and knocked. I let my mom go to work, and I would stay in the house. And when I did go, I'd play sick and I'd come back home. So I have no memory of junior high school at all. So that was Belle's whole journey through presence to absence.
So at one point, Belle does experience the flat line that you express. First, tell me a little bit more about what this flat line is, the significance of it, and the significance of flat line in Belle's life as well.
My father had to make a decision about me going to live with him because my mom really needed me to get out of the house, get out of New Bedford, get away from all the troubles that were going on in the city. And he decided that he would. So when he went to Phyllis and asked her, would she allow that to happen, which for 4 years of my visiting during the summers, it was like, let me tell you what happened, what flatlined me. So flatlining comes when you just stop. You just stop breathing. Phyllis, every summer, I couldn't have access to my father. This is before I turned 14. I couldn't have access to my father. I had to stay in the house while all the kids were going to all kind of fun kid things and to the beaches and out and just, doing like their kid parties, and all the kids from all over the world came to Martha's Vineyard. I could not go out. I had to stay in the house. I had to wash these windows. They were in the kitchen. We had these windows. They were like these little square windows, like 6 of them, maybe to each pane, and I had to clean them every day in the corners and make sure they were triple clean. I couldn't have phone calls. I couldn't have visitors. I was in jail. 4 summers in a row, I was in jail. And my father would have to make excuses for him and I to have a moment together. That flatlined me, because now, think about it. I came out of a situation where I was blocked because of my emotions. I couldn't get through. I wasn't present. I went into a stopped mode where I was no longer absorbing anything. I was leaking. I was just giving you leaks of emotions, leaks of presence, leaks of, you weren't getting very much. It was just and now I'm in a place where I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And I can't say anything about it. And I have no escape. And I have no way to get relief. And I stayed every summer because I must have known something in my heart. It wasn't that I must have known. I knew that I had to beat my father. And I was willing to take any beatings that this one wanted to give me emotionally to beat my father. And every summer, she would try to make my father hate me even more. So that flatlined me. And then I'd come back to my mother in the winter to go to school. This was during middle school. And I wouldn't go to school. So It wasn't even now making a presence in school or being there and being absent in school. It was not wanting to leave the house and go anywhere. It was sitting in the chair downstairs in my mother's living room and just looking at the walls. It was not understanding how life had taken these transitions to such a young child that I can't find love anywhere. It was, why is it that this woman hates me so much, and everything that I've kept hidden from my father, she's exposing in all the wrong ways and making me look like I'm a whore at 10, 11, 12 years old when I had never even had a boyfriend. So I flatlined because Belle didn't know where to turn. Who was going to help me? Who's going to understand this mess? I didn't understand it at that age. All I knew was that somebody was trying to kill me, and I felt dead. So at 14, when my mom told my dad that I was going to move there with him, she wanted me to move there with him, and he agreed and told Phyllis, well, it's either you. She said to my father, it's either me or her. And my father said, well, I guess you have to leave. And she did. And that 6-month period that she was gone was the most amazing time of my life. I think that had that period not occurred, I would have remained flatlined and lost. I don't think I would have come back up for air. Not that I had suicidal thoughts, because I didn't, but I had no thoughts. I was blank. I had I didn't even have the kids in the neighborhood anymore. And all my mother would keep doing was sending me to my grandmother Vanilla, who I loved tremendously. And she would try to give me some happinesses. So flatline comes about when you feel that sense of depression, that sense of, I really don't care. I really don't care. And even during that time, I didn't care so much that I started drinking. So now I was drinking and smoking cigarettes because I had nowhere else to fill myself with. We didn't have marijuana back then. But with all my allergies, I probably wouldn't have done that anyway. But so my flatline, I came up for air at 14 for 6 months when Phyllis was gone. My father and I went swimming. I mean, another restoration memory that I have is we were on the lake and he was going to swim to the shallow part, so we had to go over the deep part. And he went under the water, and my father was a great swimmer. He was a great pianist. He was a great guitarist. He was a great man. He took me by my feet and swam me underwater to the shallow part. Ah, I could just cry. He was amazing, and I thank God for him, for being in my life. But that was the 6-month period of breathing. And then it returned to all type of combinations when Phyllis returned of block, stopped, and flatlined. Until I left. I am feeling amazing. You've helped me to envision so many other types of emotions that I have maybe need to dance with through our next few segments. I really thank you for being such a great interviewer that you were able to open me up, which I tend to stay pretty closed most of the time. So thank you. Thank you for that phenomenal interview. And I look forward to our next 2 or 3, maybe 4 segments of getting through Dr. Selena. Thank you.
Well, the honor really is mine, and I really give all reverence to God because I can really see the testament of what He's doing through you. I really do see you as a great channel for His work, and I'm just so blessed to have been able to be a part of this journey and to be able to have unpacked this with you. And I'm just looking forward to more and more because I know that this work that you're doing it is important. And I'm just glad to be a part of it. I really am.
And I thank you. So for you at home, remember, we're reclaiming our voice. I want you to unlock, unveil, and unleash. Don't fear it, face it. Dr. Selena, see you next week.